The sun was barely up when a man in a cheap suit, clutching a clipboard, stood at the edge of my ranch, barking orders like he owned the place. "This is your final notice," he snapped, his voice cutting through the crisp Arizona morning. 7 days to vacate this property. HOA board's orders. I stood on my porch, coffee mug in hand, squinting at him, not quite awake. Behind him, 2 others loomed, including the neighborhood's notorious queen bee, Linda Harper, her oversized sunglasses perched on her nose like a crown. She looked smug, like she'd already won. "What exactly am I being evicted from?" I asked, keeping my tone even. "This ranch," the clipboard guy sneered. "Non-approved fencing, unregulation barn paint, too many animals, and big one unauthorized solar panels." I took a slow sip of coffee, letting the steam curl around my face. "You do realize I'm not part of your HOA, right?" Linda let out a sharp laugh. "Oh, honey, we expanded last month. You're in it now." That's when it hit me. These people had no idea. Not only was my ranch outside their jurisdiction, but I owned the very land their precious HOA headquarters sat on, the building where they held their meetings, sent their sanctimonious newsletters, and acted like they ruled the world. I had the deed, locked in a fireproof safe inside my house. But I didn't say a word. Not yet. "Good to know," I said, my voice flat. "I'll look into it." They turned and strutted off, the clipboard guy scribbling furiously, Linda's heels clicking on the dirt. I watched them go, a slow smile creeping across my face. They just stepped into a fight they couldn't win. My name's Ethan Caldwell, a 43-year-old retired Army logistics officer. After 20 years of deployments, I wanted peace, so I bought 45 acres of raw Arizona land wide open, framed by mountains, a place to breathe. I built a simple house, started raising horses, grew my own food, and for the first time in years, I slept without nightmares. Back then, there was no HOA, no meddling neighbors, just me and the quiet. But good things don't last. A year later, developers rolled in with their white trucks and blueprints, turning the land around me into Hidden Valley Estates, a glossy suburb of manicured lawns and dimming streetlights. With it came the HOA, and at first, they left me alone. My ranch had its own road, its own boundaries, clear as day on every map. But as their neighborhood grew, so did their arrogance. It started with letterbold, official-looking demands signed by the board. First, they wanted my fence to match their community aesthetic. Then they suggested I reconsider my horses. Finally, they warned me about my solar panels violating their energy policy. I ignored them. That's when Linda Harper, the HOA's self-appointed dictator, took it personally. She lived in the biggest house on the block, a glass monstrosity with robotic lawnmowers and a glowing fountain. She wore diamonds to board meetings and once tried to ban kids from skateboarding after 4 p.m. because it ruined her cocktail hour. My silence drove her wild. She started showing up at my gate, snapping pictures of my barn, my horses, even the kids who came for riding lessons. Once, she left a note in my mailbox. "A bulldozer can fix a lot of problems." I reported her to the sheriff, but they said she wasn't trespassing yet. So I installed cameras, high def, motion activated, night vision, all feeding to my phone. One morning, I caught her inside my gate, filming my ranch and ranting about it being a safety hazard. That was it. I had my lawyer send a cease and desist letter, but the HOA didn't back down, they doubled down. That morning on my porch, with their eviction notice, they'd crossed a line. What they didn't know was that years ago, I'd bought an extra 5 acres next to my ranch for horse trails. When the developers built Hidden Valley, they needed part of that land for their clubhouse and HOA office. Through a title company screw-up, they thought it was theirs. It wasn't. It was mine. They built their fancy headquarters fountains, flags, conference rooms on my property. I let them, biding my time. Sometimes revenge is a dish best served cold. But an eviction notice? That was too far. I went inside, poured another coffee, and pulled the deed from my safe, original, stamped, notarized. They'd messed with the wrong rancher. I started drafting a letter, not just to the HOA, but to every homeowner in Hidden Valley, ready to expose the truth. But then my security feed pinged. Linda and 2 others were back at my gate, this time with chains and bolt cutters. I watched, stunned, as Linda pointed at my padlock, and the red-haired guy beside her sliced it open. They stepped onto my land like they owned it. "Okay, that's trespassing," I said aloud, grabbing my phone and dialing the sheriff. I stormed out, boots pounding the dirt, heart racing. The redhead froze when he saw me, but Linda didn't flinch. "Ethan," she said, smirking, "we're here for an inspection. HOA rules allow surprise visits for violations." I stopped short, planting myself between them and my barn. "You broke my lock," I said, holding up my phone so the sheriff could hear. "You're trespassing. It's on camera, and I'm pressing charges." Linda laughed, but it faltered. "You're overreacting." The sheriff's deputy on the line, Officer Daniels, was calm. "We hear you, Mr. Caldwell. Units are on the way. Don't engage." 10 minutes later, patrol cars rolled up, lights flashing. Linda's smugness melted as Daniels issued citations and warned them, "Come back, and it's jail." She stomped to her SUV, fuming. I wasn't smiling anymore. This wasn't just a power trip, it was harassment. That night, I wrote the letter. "Dear Hidden Valley residents, I'm Ethan Caldwell, your neighbor with the horses and red barn. What you don't know is I own the land under your HOA's headquarters." I attached copies of the deed, aerial maps, and a notarized statement from my lawyer proving their building was on my property. I ended with a jab. "Ask your HOA what land they actually control." I printed 200 copies and delivered them to every mailbox in Hidden Valley. By sunset, my phone was buzzing, residents shocked, angry, apologetic. Some were furious at the HOA. One woman, Sarah, brought me a pie. The HOA held an emergency meeting in a neighbor's patio, since their building was now off limits. I watched from my porch, sipping sweet tea, wondering how far this would go. 3 nights later, I woke to my horse's panicked whinnies and the smell of smoke. Someone had cut my barn's power and tossed a flare into the hay. I grabbed a fire extinguisher and contained it, but barely. If I'd slept through it, the barn and my horse would have been gone. The sheriff found a flare casing and footage of a silhouette with a gas can slipping through the trees. "This was no accident," Daniels said. I sat on my porch that night, shotgun across my lap, floodlights on, disappointed. I tried to live quietly, but someone wanted me gonna be any means. I drove to my lawyer, Olivia Reed, an ex-JAG officer like me. "This is arson," she said, reviewing the police report. "If it ties to the HOA, we'll bury them." I wanted to sue, to end this publicly. That afternoon, a typed note appeared on my gate. "You should have left when you had the chance." I added more cameras, moved my horses to a friend's stable, and kept watch. Then I saw Linda, standing in the tree lane, staring. She didn't speak, just vanished into the dark. A twist came 2 days later. Tom Bennett, a retired surveyor from Hidden Valley, showed up with a binder of old land surveys. "Your land," he said, pointing to the maps. "The developers never filed an easement for that clubhouse. They ignored me when I warned them." He'd had enough of Linda's tyranny. "You help people," he said. "You fix fences, give kids pony rides, donate eggs. You're better than them." That night, a monsoon hit, enlightening her, so I thought set the HOA building ablaze. Firefighters couldn't save it. Neighbors watched their community heart burn to ash. I stood in the rain, feeling nothing. But it wasn't lightning. Investigators found accelerant and a cut power box arson. Linda pointed at me, screaming, "He did this. He wanted revenge." Neighbors turned, some hostile, but I stayed calm. "Check my cameras," I told Daniels. I never left my ranch. The footage backed me up. Then the insurance company dropped a bomb. The HOA's claim was denied because the land was mine. Linda's empire was crumbling, and she knew it. Then came the whistleblower. Olivia received a packet of leaked emails, one from Linda. "If we can't get Caldwell out legally, maybe we encourage him another way. I've asked Derek to look into options." Tom had sent it, fed up with Linda's schemes. The emails linked Derek, the redhead, to an HOA slush fund paying him to sabotage my ranch. That night, another envelope appeared on my door, a photo of my ranch, taken from the burned HOA building, with a red marker threat. "Next time, it won't just be hay that burns." I wasn't waiting anymore. I took the evidence to the sheriff, who opened a criminal investigation. My army buddies arrived, retirees who owed me favors. We turned my ranch into a fortress, patrolling in shifts. On the 3rd night, a motion sensor pinged. Someone was crawling toward my generator with a gas can. My friend Cole spotted him through night vision. Derek. A laser dot hit his chest, and I called out, "Hands up." He bolted, tripped a wire trap, and screamed as he hit the ground. The sheriff cuffed him in minutes. It was over, or so I thought. The next day, a warrant went out for Linda. She'd fled, but not before publishing a hit piece in the local paper, calling me a dangerous, unhinged veteran. It was lies, but it hurt. Neighbors stopped waving, canceled riding lessons. Then the police caught her in Flagstaff. Her arrest went viral in Hidden Valley's Facebook group. She offered $1.2 million to buy my land and settle. I laughed and said no. Instead, I called a town meeting and announced I was donating the land for a veterans community center open to all, even the HOA if they behaved. The crowd cheered, some cried, and Tom gave me a thumbs up. But Linda wasn't done. She sued me for defamation and emotional distress, claiming I'd ruined her life. The media ate it up, painting her as a victim. It stung until Tom's niece, Emily, a journalist, filmed my story. The video, exposing Linda's harassment and my land ownership, hit 2.3 million views in 48 hours. Support poured in, pies, emails, veterans calling me a hero. The judge dismissed Linda's lawsuit, and the DA charged her with arson, conspiracy, and obstruction. 2 weeks before her trial, my cameras went offline. I stepped outside, flashlight in hand, and saw a dark SUV, engine running. Linda stepped out, wild-eyed, no longer the polished HOA queen. "You think you've won?" she hissed. "I built this community. You ruined it." I stayed calm. "You didn't build it. You poisoned it." I bluffed about the sheriff tracking her, and she fled, tires spitting dirt. The trial was a spectacle. The prosecution laid out everything: footage, emails, Tom's testimony, the threatening photo. I took the stand, telling the truth without anger. The jury didn't buy Linda's victim act. Guilty on all counts. For years probation, 6 months in jail, banned from HOA rolls forever. Hidden Valley's HOA collapsed, replaced by a volunteer committee focused on community, not control. They invited me to their first meeting. I went, not for applause, but to see healing begin. My ranch is quiet now. Horses graze, kids laugh during pony lessons, and the Veterans Center is rising. I kept that threatening photo, not as a trophy, but a reminder: the loudest bullies are often the weakest. Stand your ground, speak the truth, and the land will hold you up.